We are back. So I started draining this gas tank. I did not fully get it empty because I need to buy a siphon pump. I don't have one. So my fuel pump, it is a 1/4 inch out. My hard line for the fuel line is 3/8, and the fuel pump installation only came with a 1/4 inch line. So I got some 3/8 inch hose. My dad had some on hand, and I got a barb that is an adapter to 1/4 to 3/8. So I should be able to hook up this fuel pump now. Still need to clean out the tank. I've not fully emptied it. I plan to do that now. There's not very much. I'm using just a little bulb syringe thing because that is all I have. I need a siphon pump. I don't have one, but rest assured I will be getting one in the future. After that is done, I'm going to put some vinegar in this tank. It is great at removing rust. I went to the grocery store. I was going to get distilled white vinegar. I bought all they had, and that was a gallon and a half. That's all they had, so I got some apple cider vinegar. Quick search said that's almost as good. It's all they had, so I really have to work with what I've got. I'm going to put that in the tank. I'm going to put some chain in the tank and try to clean this tank out the best I can. I'm thinking let it soak a day or so. I don't have enough to fill the entire tank. I don't want to spend that much on vinegar. So I'm going to let it soak for a bit, maybe flip the tank, let it soak, just kind of get an eyeball of how good is that. Maybe I'll let it soak more than a day or two. Let it soak for a bit, see where it goes. I'm going to put chain in there. I'm going to shake it, spin it, turn it, do everything I can to try to agitate the rust and the grit and hope to coax it out. But first I need to get the last little bit of gas out of it. There's not much left. I can just barely get my hand in the opening for the fuel pump and get it out. Because the problem with dumping it, this nozzle, like the fill nozzle, that pipe goes inside where if you pour the gas in, since that nozzle goes up, it just pulls around. It doesn't actually go out. I wish there was an easier way to drain this. There is not. So that is where we are. A lot of stuff in the tank. I might see if I can clean out just some of the pure gunk. Just get out ahead of time. I don't know what this is. It's like this, I don't even know. It's almost like rubber. Not very much of it, but it is crumbling. I really wish I thought ahead because I want to try to get everything buttoned back up this weekend. And it is Thursday, and if I let this soak for 2 days, that is half my weekend gone right there. Wish I'd planned ahead. I did not. It's the way it goes. I mean, what's a few more days, right? So I did find my other fuel line clamp. It was in the bottom amidst all this stuff. I don't know what this is. I assume at least some of this is the rubber hose that was in there. There's some more of whatever this is. This is dried out. You can see how crumbly it is. I don't know what that is. That's what it is. I mean, it looks almost like a sleeve or a hose or something, but I don't know. The tank really is about as clean as I can get it. I kind of fit my hand just barely in there, but you can't reach very far in there. So I think it's time for vinegar and chain. Now I've got the chain, and I've connected the chain all together, just that way I don't have to try to fish out a bunch of pieces. It is small. I think that's better. I would love to put the sending unit in the top, but I don't want the chain knocking around that. It could easily break that plastic, chip it, damage it. So I'm thinking I might just tape the top up. I don't know. I mean, I believe the top feels relatively smooth, which is good. It's the bottom that seems to have a lot of rust, so I think we'll concentrate my efforts there. I thought about trying to put the filler neck on, but if I have the top open, well, I don't need the filler neck on. But I've got a bunch of vinegar, and that should do the trick. Now, the thing is, after I let the vinegar sit for a while, I'm going to use the chain to agitate any rust and try to clean it up as much as I can. Do need a water and baking soda mix just to stop the vinegar. The vinegar's an acid. It will just keep eating through the metal. Well, I mean, not eating through the metal, but it will cause it to, it'll clean up the rust, and then it'll rust after if you don't neutralize it. So as I'm embarking trying to clean this tank up, I decided to look up how much is a new gas tank. The answer is $90. Have I put in $90 worth of effort into this? The answer is yes. Yes, I have. I mean, I've spent, like $10 in vinegar, and just the amount of effort I put in to try and clean this out and deal with this. I mean, I've always operated on shoestring budgets for any project I've had, but at a certain point you just wonder, is it worth all this trouble? Should I have just bought a $90 gas tank? I think the answer probably is yes, but at this point I feel like I'm too far in. But again, that is bad thinking. Sometimes you just got to cut your losses. But at this point, I've got the vinegar, I've got the tank emptied out, I'm ready to see what that vinegar is going to do for this tank. But at $90, it seems like it'd be pretty good to just buy a new tank. And That's just something to think about. It would have saved me a lot of trouble. I could have just kicked this out, not even worried about it. But then again, $90 is $90, and it'd be nice to retain that $90 so I can use it elsewhere on this project. I feel confident we're going to get this cleaned up decently well. And we've already cleaned it up a lot. I'm glad all this junk is not in the tank anymore. I've recovered all the brackets and things that I thought were in there. So let's drop some vinegar in here, drop some chain in here, and see how clean we can get this thing. So I've been sloshing this around. The vinegar, it was kind of, I did use apple cider, so it's kind of like clearish brownish. Now it is brownish, reddish, completely rusty, completely opaque. I've just been sloshing it kind of like this, setting this thing up, down, back, forth, all around. I will let it sit because the bottom obviously was the rustiest, crustiest part of it. So hopefully that'll work it out, and I'll let it sit overnight, come back to it, slosh it around again, see where we are. I'm hoping it looks a lot cleaner. If it doesn't, well then doesn't that stink? That certainly looks better. So I'm hoping all of it will look better. Hopefully we'll get some results. If not, I guess I'm going to buy a new gas tank and all this was a waste of effort. But hopefully that's not the case. As I'm letting the gas tank soak, got the radiator back in, fan shroud, all connections. Quite easy. Most of them are the worm gear connections. You can see one right there. I looked for lower fan shroud, but couldn't find one. And I got this one over here. You can see it's got a bit of a chunk cut out of it right there, but I don't know, there's a few things different about it, and while it has 2 more bolts than my other one, I just figure I'll stick with what I got. I also wanted to top them because I don't know why they punch a hole in there to tie that radiator hose, because it's got a little lip anyway, right back there, so it won't hit the alternator. I don't know, people do things, I don't know why. You kind of wonder what's going on there. 2 worm gears, were they having some leaking issues? It certainly seems like it. The engine bay is one step closer to looking complete. Need to put battery tray in there. Looked for a bottom battery tray bolt. Couldn't find one. That's okay. Ever closer to actually trying to start this thing. And I really hope it starts because I really don't have any other option. Maybe if it doesn't start, I've learned some things, had some fun, but that'd be a little disappointing if it doesn't start. That's just a whole pile of mess. Gas tank, I've sloshed it around. I've let it sit flat. I've tilted it one side, the other side, a different side. The chain is in there. I've sloshed it around. You can see steel. You can see bare steel in there. The camera doesn't quite want to focus. You can see the bottom, that bottom tray. Looking a lot clean. This is one of the retaining clips that holds the plastic baffle on the bottom of the tank on. It came off. It had been a little bit loose and it just worked itself out. What I did, I put it on a flat surface and hit it with a hammer. Try to reduce the size of the opening, because it kind of flares up. So I'm hoping with a hammer, hitting it, it'll close that gap just enough because it's just a little loose. We're about to find out. So my little washer retainer, it is definitely more snug. Can't get it all the way on there. I'm hoping this ratchet extension arrangement will work. That kind of fits right over the stud. So I'm hoping this and a hammer will get it all the way to the bottom. And we have a success. See right there, the extension, it worked, hammering it. There's a little bit of resistance, and then once it kind of slid far enough down, it went right in there. That bottom baffle is now snug in there, unlike it ever was before. I don't know how that one loosened up. It did. I need to get this stuff buckled back together and get it done. I've got my fuel pump, my assembly, everything. I've got the right hoses. So the 1/4 inch is what came with the fuel pump installation kit. Well, my fuel line on the truck is 3/8. So I got a brass bar that's ready for fuel and all that good stuff. And that'll get me across it. Here is my sending unit. I cleaned it up with a little bit of vinegar. I had poured baking soda and water mixture on it, but you can see it's still flash rusted. All this was nice, silver, clean looking. Not 100% release this hose because the old rubber hose is going to completely just attached to it. So I had to scrub that off. So I need to clean this up again and then hook up my new fuel pump. I've got the wiring, just need to splice the wiring. I've already cut it here, as you can see. Fit it in here. And you can see my hose. Now that's not a lot of space right there. You can see here, just with my clamps alone, it takes up quite a bit of space. So I haven't quite decided. I'm wondering, do I cut off this line right here? And so that way it looks something like this where my hoses run, very much like stock. I might do that because with the way this fuel pump runs, I can't connect it straight. I'd have to cut it up at least a little bit, and then I don't have enough space to get the hose on there. So I'm thinking, cut this right here, I've got I believe I have a pipe cutter. I think I should. And I'll just cut it like right above the bend. Should be easy enough to solve that problem. And I don't know if my fuel level sending unit works. Obviously, I could test that and make sure I haven't. Part of the things, let's just roll it, because I want to see if this truck even runs. You know, if it runs, then we can run this other stuff. If it doesn't run, I'm just polishing brass on the Titanic, and I'd rather not do that. First order of business is clean this up, get the fuel pump, get everything together. I'm reusing kind of like this as a little rubber plastic piece that goes in the base of the fuel pump. That fits well. I got this new isolator base that does not quite fit in there well, so I'm just going to use what came with it. So I don't see any way that the fuel pump is tied back to the unit. It looks like, you know, it just kind of sticks in the base and the hose holds it in place. I guess that's the case. I'm not too worried about it. I think it would stay. I mean, I could always try to like run a zip tie around somewhere, though I guess I need to make sure my zip ties are just plastic. Will they hold up in fuel? I don't know. I need to look in that. But I don't think I need to tie it down at all. We're entering the point of no return. I've cut off this supply line, or I'm in the process of. Because if you look at it, how the fuel pump fits in here, that's the fuel all the way in. You can see, if I can show it. I mean, you can see there's, you know, a 1/4 inch between the top of the fuel pump and that line. And even if I cut this off right at the barbs, I mean, the barbs would extend past, so there's really no good way to do it. So I'm just gonna, this follows the hard line, so I'm just gonna splice in that way. I think that should work fine. Yeah, I wish I didn't have a 1/4 to 3/8 splice. There's no way around it. I'm gonna have that splice no matter what. So I think this way, I'm following that natural line. Works for me. I've just about cut through the supply line. And after that, there's no returning other than buying a whole new assembly. But I don't see any reason why this wouldn't work. This is what you get into when you're doing custom stuff. It wants to come off. I know it does. First, I have this clamped in, be a little bit better. You know, you can see I'm wasting a lot of energy holding it still. And it is gone. Look at that. Gone. I'm going to use a rasp, just smooth out the inside of that cut and just sand down on the outside so I get a good, nice connection. Because all this roughness, you want it smooth so you're getting a good, clean connection between that hose when you clamp it down. But we are done, man. This thing, we are making progress. We are cutting stuff up. That pipe, you can see the outside of that pipe looked quite rusty. Really, the inside is only rusty right here, right at the kind of opening. Good, let's clean this up. This fuel pump is very close to being in. And once fuel pump's in, this goes in the tank goes back in the truck, and then we test it. So just to assemble this back together, this clip, I had pulled out the wiring from right here. I didn't realize that there was a plug just upstream, so I pried this out. Had some difficulty, obviously. I thought this clip might have been attached, welded somehow to the top. It is not. It's just tension fit. I just took a socket that was wider than the plug, put it over, and hammer it in to get this tension fit right. So now this thing, it is in there, it is good, it is tight. And then, here's my wiring for the pump. This is the factory wiring. And so I'll just put that back in there, make sure it clips into place. And it does, so that is set. And then my new pump, I'll splice in right there. The installation kit came with the splices and everything, so we're on our way. Here's where the hose will go. I cut that. I think that's actually gonna, I think it's gonna work out better. It is nice to see this come together, man, but I'm still a little nervous about where this is gonna crank. All right, the fuel pump is in place. I put the little sock on the bottom. You have to put the fuel pump in place because this metal bracket here at the bottom, you gotta put the fuel pump through to get the sock on. I like how the sock is made. You can see there's some plastic, hard plastic running there. Just the sock, as it's the pump sucking the sock, it won't suck the sock up and get stuck in there. That plastic keeps from sucking the sock all the way in. I did orient the sock in this way, just otherwise it sticks out farther on this side. Otherwise it'd be sticking past the return. I don't think that matters, but I'd rather keep that free and clear. I've oriented where the pump outlet is, similar to the other one, to where my hoses should go right across. Now I need to splice these wires in. They are obviously much longer than they need to be, but I may just keep a little bit of a service loop in there, just so I have a little bit of play. I'm not sure it's necessary, but I'm thinking I'll probably cut them off about here, maybe less than that. I mean, yeah, I may cut them pretty close. Not like I'm going to need to resplice this ever again. I'm hoping to be one and done on this. What's in place? I could not use this isolator that was on the pump originally, because if you put this on there, I couldn't fit the sock on the pump, which obviously is a problem. I need that sock on there. The sock pretty much holds in place like you look. It can't really move. With the sock on there, it helps keep it in place. That hose will help balance the top. Where I was wondering, do I need to tie this somehow? I don't think so. I just need to trim it a little bit. I'm just going to trim it about right there. I'm going to test fit it, make sure. They'll fit much like that. I think this thing's done, ready to be put in the tank. A little bit of gas in that tank. I'm getting excited. I'm nervous, but I'm excited because we're close. And yet, only in retrospect will I know whether I should be excited or nervous. Because in retrospect, if it works, man, I was excited. I was ready to be excited. If it doesn't work, it's like, man, I was ready to be nervous. The world's going to end. Not really, metaphorically, small scale. So I'm going to reinstall the gas tank. I forgot about my fuel tank isolators, where it's this rubber mat, rubber strip that goes on there, just between the bracket and the tank. It's got a little grip to it. Spent $12 on these. You need 4. You can't just like buy one long roll. You gotta get 4 individual ones, which are all slightly long. And they just go on the tank. And I don't know. Do they really serve a purpose? I assume so. I assume there might be some static electricity buildup if the bracket was directly on the tank. Either way, I'm sure it prevents some squeaking, some noises. So my top ones had completely just rotted away, were gone. The bottom ones are still kind of intact, all nice and crusty. But I'm just replacing them all, doing it right, because that's the way I do it. I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. So the first one's on, and it is self-adhesive. You just fill the paper up, stick it, ready to go. So I'm going to do the other top one, the 2 bottom ones, and then try to lift this tank into place. The isolators on the top of the tank came off easy. These low bottom ones, man, they are not. I'm using the scraper to get these things off. That has helped, but they've not been easy. And this glue, this self-adhesive isolator I put on, there's no way the glue is as good as this. This glue is sticky. And these things, they're in rough shape. You can see my straps were rusty, so these isolators are rusty. Just about got them off, clean it up, put them on. I probably should do something about the rust on this tank. At least, I don't know, clean it up, paint it, something. But right now, I just want to make sure this thing works. I don't want to go too far, too fast if it's not even going to run. I mean, I'm confident it will. I keep saying that. But at some point, the rubber is going to have to hit the road. Look at this. So I'm taking these isolator straps off, and as I'm taking it off and kind of scraping away, I see that. And I think, surely, there's no way that is what I think it is. So I got a little bit of wire just to poke in the hole, see how far it goes. Check this out. That is a hole in my gas tank. This gas tank I've wasted a bunch of time on, and I thought I'm wasting my time. I should just buy a new gas tank. I've got that hole. So what am I going to do? Because I'm like so close to getting this thing going, trying to get it started. I've got some JB Weld. I'm going to just put some JB Weld on that hole, clean it up first so I get good bond, good adhesion. So I want to adhere to the tank, not to whatever surface rust is there. Again, I don't have to get into replacing the tank if this thing does not turn out the way I want it to. I cannot believe I come across that hole. I guess the moral of the story is replace your tank isolators before you try to clean up the tank. I don't even know, man. I mean, obviously the thing was not leaking because I would have noticed water and vinegar and everything else coming out of that hole. I guess just taking these straps off and like whatever crud was there was keeping that hole at bay. I tell you, man, this is a disappointment. But I'm going to JB Weld it, and I'm going to proceed because I'm not going to let this thing get me down. Just for some notes for myself, if I ever have to install this tank again, which is very likely, coming out's a lot easier than going back in. So a few things to note that I'd undo, redo. When the tank is on the ground, you need all your soft hoses that connect to the hard lines on the frame body. You need those on the tank, because once the tank goes up, you can't reach those clamps. So make sure those are on first. Your vent hose for the filler neck, that needs to be connected before the tank goes up. Now that does make getting the filler neck itself onto the tank, makes it a little tricky. You have a very narrow spot to do it, but you can't do that once the tank is up. But everything else, it has to be on before the tank goes up. And before the tank is completely up, make sure your ground and your wiring, make sure you fish that through above the top frame rail. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to see it. It's going to be tough to grab once the tank is up. Those are things to note. I do want to emphasize that the filler neck needs to be on before the tank goes up, or the filler vent needs to be on before the tank goes up. And the filler neck, it is tight. It is tough to get it on when the tank is up. I didn't have it all the way up, about maybe 3/4 of the way up, but it can be done. Not easy. I've been fooling this thing for a while. The ground bolt for the fuel pump, I was searching. I thought for sure it was on that rear frame rail. Could not find it. It was there, just with all the rust and low light, I just had missed that bolt. That bolt was on the top of the rear frame rail, rear cross member. With it being on top, I was looking from underneath, looking for a hole, looking for anything, a bolt coming through, and the bolt was there, just with the rust and the darkness, couldn't see it. So that was there. For the tank, it's much easier to install with it empty. So that is a good thing. the tank straps. Those 18mm bolts, and once the tank's in place, I just put the front bolt on, just hand tight, held it in place. I got the rear one on, so that strap was in place. Same for the next one. So this tank is back. Now, the hoses that connect to the hard lines on the frame body, I've not installed those or clamped those down yet. They're kind of just in place, hand tight, because I want to make sure this fuel pump pumps gas. I know the fuel pump does work. I want to make sure I wired it correctly. I mean, I feel like 99% sure I did, but there's always that one little thing. I don't want to try to start this truck and then realize, hey, there's some issue. What is it? Because it could be any number of things. So I just want to rule out the fuel pump pumping gas right now before I put everything back together.